He has asked me as deputy chair to chair today's meeting. And so we'll start with calling the meeting to order. Adoption of the agenda. Are there any added items from council administration? Seeing none, I'd ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that we adopt the agenda for Monday, August 23rd, 2021 at 1 p.m. as presented.
All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? The motion is carried. Moving on, we have a number of minutes to adopt. First is the regular council meeting minutes of July 12th, 2021. Could I have a motion? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Deputy Worship, I would move that the minutes from July 12th, 2021 at 1 p.m., the regular council meeting, be adopted as presented.
Any questions, errors, or omissions? Seeing none, call for the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion is carried. We'll move on to the special closed council meeting minutes of July 20th, 2021. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you. I move that the minutes from the July 20th, 2021, 1 p.m. special closed meeting of council be adopted as presented.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call for the motion then to vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. So moving on to the July 26th special closed council meeting minutes, I'll call for a motion. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that we adopt the special closed council meeting minutes from July 26th at 10 a.m. as presented.
Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Then we also have another meeting, special council meeting minutes of July 26th for the 1 p.m. meeting. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that the minutes from the July 26, 2021, 1 p.m. special council meeting be adopted as presented.
Are there any errors or omissions? Councillor Blatz.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. On page 16 of our agenda, on the second line, it says that the governance issues the town was having with O1, and I believe it should be OI. Second paragraph, second sentence in. Legislative clerk, thank you.
Duly noted for the typo error. Councillor Overwater, would you like to make that amendment?
Yes, thank you, as amended.
Very much. So we will call for the vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to the special closed council meeting minutes of August the 11th, 2021. Motion. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that the minutes of August 11th, 2021, them being the special closed council meeting, be adopted as presented.
Are there any errors or omissions to those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll be moving down to presentation and delegations, pages 23 to 34, Bylaw 2021-13, Council Code of Conduct Bylaw. Consideration for all readings. Could we start with a motion for first reading? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that bylaw 2021-13 Code of Conduct Council Code of Conduct be given first reading as presented.
Are there any questions? Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Under section 14.1 complaint process. We have had a lengthy conversation about this. Complaints would not be accepted within 90 days prior to a municipal general election on a code of conduct infraction per se, but I'm wondering if we should perhaps maybe change that to 60 or 30 days. And the reason I would like to give consideration for this particular item is due to the fact that we now are able to file our nomination papers at a very early time, I believe as of January 1st of the election year, which gives individuals a whole entire, 8 months, 10 months to start campaigning or for, a reelection or for a seat upon council. And my concern would be that we as incumbents have a duty and an obligation to fulfill the duties of council until the election. And I think it keeps us above board and perhaps maybe honest and transparent if we know that we shouldn't be speaking ill toward anyone or another individual councillor or an individual person who may decide that they wish to run for council. So therefore, I would think that I would like to maybe give consideration if we would like to change that from 90 days to 60 or 30 days prior to a municipal election. And I do realize that we have 30 days to investigate a said complaint, but I think that this is really due diligence on our part to become much more transparent and open and honest as individuals who may want to run for a municipal office.
So thank you very
Thank you.
much for your comments, Councillor Blatz. Which would you prefer, 60 days, 30 days? Does the rest of council, perhaps we could do a straw poll? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Chair Harper. I would concur with Councillor Blatz. I like the 30 days. That's just my preference. I don't know what anybody else thinks, but that's my preference.
CEO Merritt, you do have a comment?
Just a comment in regards to it. The reason for the period of time before is so that we would have time to have the investigation and any of the rulings done. So it is up to council to decide the period of time. That's why I think 90 days was chosen to basically have a due diligence and time to actually do the investigation and things of that nature. I also want to comment in regards to the overall package of the code of conduct, if you don't mind, is that this is the third time it's been before council. We had it at the PMP session in June, and then at a June 7th, and then at a council meeting on the 28th. A number of adjustments were made, mostly to the process in regards to the document. The meeting on the 28th was a closed session, which we had legal counsel, Mr. Michael Sullivan, who is here with us today, and he can answer any questions per se. But he did make most of the adjustments that were required for the code of conduct, and that's what's incorporated. So yes, these the comment that Councillor Blatz is quite valid, and it's really not for administration to decide. I'm just basically highlighting the reason for why the 90 days was chosen, but it's really up to council to make that decision.
Councillor Ryan, you have a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper, but I actually think Councillor Bennett was before me.
Thank you, Councillor
Councillor
Ryan. I'm fine with it staying at 90 days as we have decided previously.
Back to Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a change to the 60 days or 30 days. My feeling is the same as Councillor Blatz who mentioned. I think it keeps us honest. It keep, if anything, it allows us to realize that we have to continue to serve the community regardless of whether you're running or not. And I just think it was more of a mental thing as opposed to a trying to create a situation where sanctions would be put in place. I just think it's a more forefront and again, transparent. So I would be leaning towards either one of those times. I understand the 30 days that Mr. Merritt had mentioned. But if it was in that period of time, I think we would all realize that it would take time to do an investigation, and perhaps at that point we would, either let it go or whatever. But I do think that there's an opportunity here for us to be a little bit more transparent and allow that honesty to show through.
Do see, and I do apologize, Mayor Majewska, I see your hand now. So would you like to speak?
That's all right. I was next after Councillor Ryan, so that was perfect. I think we've changed this. The original iteration of the code of conduct was, I believe, 6 months, if I'm not mistaken, as far as this goes. I think the reason we had that in place is for that campaign period. Now, where I think the 30 days may fall down is when candidates who are running against each other point out some of the things that they may differ from other candidates in the pool. That may be taken as though they are talking ill of them, when it is in the vein of campaigning. So I'm strongly affixed to the 90-day. I was actually happy with the 6 months, because I'm worried about it being used as a tool against a particular candidate. Somebody lodging a complaint because they said something ill of another candidate. Well, that may just be pointing out the difference in the style, or difference in the platform of the individual candidate. And if it can be construed that they would be talking ill of another person or another candidate, well, that's not the way this code of conduct should be used. So my line of thinking is the 90 days is just fine.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Councillor Thompson has a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Worship Harper. I think there's two things we should be considering. One, I personally support the 30 days, but the province has kind of stepped back on code of conduct. There's a little bit of change in what is required of municipalities. I think it's a good practice for us to have a code of conduct, and I support the 30 days, but recognize that legislation is changing as well.
Before I go to CEO Meredith, perhaps Mr. Solomon has a comment in reference to this discussion.
Thank you. At this time, there's no legislative amendments that have been passed by the government. So the current state of the law in Alberta is that every municipality in Alberta is required pursuant to the Municipal Government Act to have a code of conduct bylaw in place, one that also includes then a complaint process and sanctions. There is discussion provincially. There have been discussions with both of the provincial associations and many people commenting on the current code process and potential changes to it. But at this time, I'm not aware of there being any bill that's been introduced. And in fact, that's something that we may see later in the year or next year. But at this time, the town is required to have a code of conduct. I would add, just for clarity on a specific issue, your current code of conduct bylaw does say 6 months. There is a 6-month blackout period, so to speak, for complaints. The policy behind that is principally to do with the concern raised by the mayor, which is the thought that a complaint could be brought for a political motivation in an election year. The recommendation was to reduce that period to 90 days so that there isn't just what some might perceive publicly as a free-for-all period where people feel like they're not obliged to follow the code. But the reason why 90 days was selected is because your investigator has the default being 90 days to investigate a complaint. So when you see 30 days in this draft bylaw, that's a reference to the initial intake of the complaint by the receiving body to determine whether or not it's within council's jurisdiction and whether an investigation should proceed. But the investigator has been asked to complete their investigation within 90 days. So the hope being that any investigation would still be concluded prior to the election. But it's entirely up to council's discretion whether to have a moratorium or a blackout period or not. And different municipalities across the province have chosen different policy options on that point.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Mayor, you have a comment.
Mr. Sullivan answered the comment. The province is looking into the situation and consulting, but there's been no changes made to the mandatory code of conduct bylaw requirements.
I'd just like to make a comment as well. As chair, I would, I'm comfortable with the 90 days, but seeing that the council is talking 30, I would like to suggest that we say 60 days, amended to 60 days, because you don't want to allow somebody to make a complaint within 30 days and for the town to go through a lot of expense when it can't be completed until before an election. So the 60 days would make a little bit more sense if we wanted to change that time frame. So I'm not sure what the rest of council wants to go with that. We do have a motion right now on the floor to accept it as circulated. If somebody wants to amend that for that particular item, we could amend it to 60 days, 30 days, and we can vote on that amendment. It's the wish of council. Councillor Overwater.
Sure, I can make a motion to amend. Okay, how do you want me to do this? We already have a motion on the floor. So do I just make another amendment to it?
You can make an amendment
Okay,
to it.
so I move to amend 14.1A to read in the code of conduct to complaints will not be accepted within 60 days prior to a municipal general election. Are you good with that?
I'm good with
Marcy?
that, and I believe our legislative clerk is good with that. And so we'll have any further discussion on the amendment now. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the amendment to have it read 60 days for item 14.1A. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed? The motion is carried. So we will vote on the motion, the first motion, first reading of 2021-13 Council Code of Conduct as amended. So that is the vote right now. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We will go on to second reading, Council Code of Conduct Bylaw 2021-13 as amended. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that bylaw 2021-13 Code of Conduct, Council Code of Conduct be given second reading as amended.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We need to go to unanimous consent for third reading of bylaw 2021-13 Council Code of Conduct as amended. Motion by Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Yes, I move the council give unanimous consent for third reading of bylaw 2021-13 Council Code of Conduct as amended.
All in favor?
I need to speak to Mr. Sullivan to find out. It has to be unanimous.
It has to be unanimous, otherwise it's held over to the next meeting.
So even though I disagree, is.
You can still, you can vote to have it agreed to the unanimous consent, Councillor Bennett, and then you can go on to third reading and do your opposing vote. Then that's your decision.
Okay, as long as it's proper.
Yes. It certainly would be. So you're voting for the unanimous consent presentation. So all in favor then, I'll just make sure, Councillor Bennett, all of us are in favor. So we do have unanimous consent. And I'm sorry, Mayor Majiska, did you oppose it at all? I missed your, thank you. So we will go on to the third reading of bylaw 2021-13, Council Code of Conduct, third reading as amended and final reading. Councillor Thompson,
Yes, I would move that bylaw 2021-13 Council Code of Conduct be given third and final reading as amended.
all in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We will move on to Council Policy 113C, Public at Large Appointments. Thank you very much, Mr. Merritt.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And there's one adjustment that was made after a discussion with council, I believe on June 28th council meeting in regards to this. And this is in relationship to 2.1 on page 2 of 2 or 37 of our agenda, where basically an elected official who is assigned to a local committee chair role shall work to train a public member to take over that role of chair of the ABCC. And so that was, there was a discussion whether a council member should chair a meeting, and there's sometimes a lack of governance knowledge. And so this was an amendment to address that issue.
Thank you very much, CEO Merritt. Could I have a motion? Councillor Bennett, were you first?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I move that the council policy, sorry,
Oh, yeah, you might.
I do.
Okay.
I move that council policy 107C, elected official appointments, and council policy 113C, public at large appointments, be approved as presented.
Any questions, comments? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I don't have a concern with that particular red bullet, but the one actually below it. I must have missed it the first time along, but it reads that elected officials shall not make motions on subjects likely to be presented to council for further review. Well, how would we know? I mean, we're talking about something that you're going to have in a committee meeting. How would we have any idea as to what kind of topics would come up in the future? And then therefore, you wouldn't know whether or not you're making a motion that might have an effect on something that may or may not come up to council. I think we should be saying we should endeavor not to do it, but it's something that, you know, just the wording saying shall not. I'm not sure if that's a little bit too strong, or the wording is just not correct from my way of thinking. It's just as I'm saying something like, you know, you'll pass a motion on something finance wise. Well, that's going to come up at council at some point. So you would understand that, but it could be something very obscure that you might pass a motion on, and then, you know, a month down the road or a year down the road that it'll come up. So I'm not sure if that's a valid point to be making.
So I understand your concerns. I know that on a couple committees that Councillor Overwater and myself are on, we encourage the other members to make motions, and CEO Merritt does have a comment.
Yes, my comment is in regards to how this is basically structured. It does say, if possible, says elected officials appointed to ABCCs or local committees containing members of the public, if possible. So that's kind of basically cushioning the 3 points that are made below. So it softens the situation. I'll ask Kelly Lloyd, who is here, if she has any comment as well, or did I capture that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have captured that appropriately.
Just for Councillor Ryan, do you see that opening statement under 2.1?
Sorry, thank you. I do. I missed the if possible, but I would just think I would rather see it say shall avoid as opposed to saying shall not. You know, I just think that it's, you you know, you could say if possible, that's doable, I guess but it's just saying you're trying to avoid it. And I understand totally. I've been on committees where I've encouraged other members to make motions or where I've tried not to make a motion and get into the situation. But sometimes when you have a new board or whatever, in order to further the governance of the board, you need to take the bull by the horn sometimes and make the motion and or at least help people making motions, and so you get involved. I'm fine with it if people are fine with it, but I just thought the shall not just bothers me, saying the not part.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson has a comment.
Thank you very much, Deputy Worship Harper. I think when I read this whole section in 2.1 and I consider the connotation, my sense is that we're encouraging councillors to allow the public members of the board to provide the leadership, and as councillors we should not be attempting to sway the group as much, so leaving that to them. So I'm comfortable with this, considering the rationale for it. We are all members on committees, but that's the reason we have the public members participant to those committees.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Yeah, I think if you read the whole sentence 2.1 in context where it says, you know, or local committees containing members of the public, if possible, shall not make motions. So I think if you read the whole sentence, it becomes clearer, in my opinion.
Kelly Lloyd does have a comment. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you, Chair Harper. Yeah, further to this, currently the revisions that council requested to see in previous meetings does cushion this, because currently your policy reads without the words if possible, and it does state that you shall not make motions. So this allows for that deciphering, as everyone has commented.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lloyd. Councillor Ryan, are you comfortable with it as it reads right now, or are you wanting to make an amendment to this? It sort of looks like the majority of council is comfortable with how it reads.
Well, I'm not gonna create waves over a word, but I would prefer shall avoid, and I would like to make that as an amendment. Saying shall not make. I said shall avoid making motions on subjects.
That will be your amendment then, Councillor Ryan?
That would be yes.
Okay. Does any council members have any comments reference to that? So we do have an amendment on the floor now. So I would like to ask for a vote on the amendment as presented. All in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. So we, does our legislative clerk have that correctly now? So we can vote on the policy as amended. So I'll call for the vote on the policy as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? Policy is carried. Thank you. Do we have the administrative policy 113P? Do we need to vote on that? No? Okay. It's just there for our information.
113C needs to be voted on.
Oh, sorry.
You included both policies in your first motion. You just approved that motion. So if you want to review 113C and make amendments, you would need to amend your motion accordingly.
Does anybody have changes to? Okay, we're okay then. Thank you very much, Ms. McKinnon. We are moving down to pages 45 to 48. And that is Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is on the Spence petition. At the public hearing of July 26, 2021, Mr. Spence filed the following petition to the legislative clerk. Petition to delay Olds Institute asset disposal to the Council of the Town of Olds in the province of Alberta. The undersigned persons, being electors of the Town of Olds in the province of Alberta, hereby respectfully request that the present elected council of the Town of Olds members named will not authorize the disposal of assets of Olds Institute of Community and Regional Development, OI, prior to the new council being elected after October 2021 election. So as per the MGA, the CAO has 45 days to rule on this petition. Today, I'm responding to my legislative responsibility that I declare the petition not sufficient on the following two reasons. One, technical sufficiency. Under the MGA, the petition, you are required to have signatures of 10% of the population. In Olds, the threshold is 10% of 9,184 or 918 persons. Secondly, those 918 signatures must be from residents that are able to vote in the Town of Olds. Hence, so you must live in Olds as your place of residence, that you are 18 and you are a Canadian resident. The number of signatures that met the legal obligations under the Local Authorities Election Act was 438, thus deemed not sufficient. Number two, substantive sufficiency. Under the MGA, the Act requires that the petition for a new bylaw must be on a matter within the jurisdiction of the council, as per the MGA or another enactment. As of the time of the submission of the petition, the assets of Olds Institute are not under the jurisdiction of the town, but under the jurisdiction of the court-appointed receiver, and thus the petition is deemed not to be sufficient. All this being said, the organizer of the petition believed before submitting the petition that it would not likely meet the legislative thresholds of the petition, but wanted the petition tabled to indicate the concerns of those that signed the petition. The official report is located in your council package. That is my report, and it's for information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Merritt. Councillor Overwater.
Would you like a motion first?
I would.
Okay, thank you. I move that the Chief Administrative Officer's report declaration on sufficiency of petition to delay Olds Institute asset disposal, the Spence petition, be received as information. I just would like to point out there's a clerical error. So I guess if I'm named in a petition, I guess I would like them to at least spell my name right. My Mary Ann has an E at the end of my name. So just make sure we get the right person that the petition is against.
Thank you very much, Councillor Overwater. Mr. Merritt, any further comments?
Duly noted.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. Just in reviewing the correspondence in today's package, the agenda item is with Chief Administrator's Officer's report on the Spence petition. I wonder in the future if we could just go with the title of the petition versus the name of the individual. It appears as though, a great number of people took the time to fill out the petition and submit it. And if we'd have called it petition to delay Olds Institute asset disposal, I think it would be less demeaning than including the individual's name who created it as Mr. Spence in this instance. And I do have a question. With 9,184 residents in the town of Olds, and those that are not Canadian citizens and those under the age of 18 not eligible in participating in the petition, how many individuals in the community of Olds would have needed to sign this petition for it to have been valid?
The amount doesn't change. It's 918, but they have to be able to vote in the upcoming election. That means whatever the electoral count is, we don't have a voters list per se, but it's those that are eligible to vote. So I don't have that specific number of the people eligible to vote, but it has to be 918 people signing that can vote.
Yeah, and in answer to this, Councillor Thompson, a petition is clearly outlined in the Municipal Government Act. So it's clearly stated as to the validity of petition and the requirements. So it's got nothing to do on signing a petition, whether or not they have the right to vote, but it's on the elector, on the number of citizens for the percentages. So it's clearly outlined in the MGA.
So just question for clarity. So where my question was is as a follow-up was with children not being able to sign a petition, if you need 10% of the electorate, is that not 10% of those being adults? And that's where my question was.
I'll ask Mr. Solwin to speak to that specifically.
Just to clarify then, under the Municipal Government Act, the petition must be signed by electors, so those eligible to vote in the election. And the number of electors that must sign has to equal 10% of the population of the municipality. So in this case, 10%, 900, at least 918 individuals have to sign, and every individual signing the petition must him or herself be an elector of the municipality.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I guess for Councillor Harper, we could have the Spence petition of whatever. It was Mr. Spence who actually presented the petition. So I guess that's why it's called a Spence petition against declaration on sufficiency, so on and so forth.
So we do have a motion on the floor. I'm prepared to call the question now. All in favor of the motion to accept it for information? Any opposed? The motion. So we will move on. So we have a public hearing for bylaw 2021, and bear with me. I have a lot to read.
Point of
Okay.
order.
Oh,
Would you mind calling a 2-minute recess so our invited guests could probably depart?
sure. How about a 5-minute break? We'll have a 5-minute recess. Thank you very much. We'll be calling the meeting back to order. We do have number 4, business arising out of the minutes or unfinished business. Is there any business arising out of the minute? Seeing none, we will move on to the public hearing. So we have a public hearing on bylaw 2021-10, amendment to the land use bylaw. I started with this, right, Mr. Mayor? I have a very lengthy preamble, sorry. So pecuniary interest for municipal councillors, section 172 of the MGA says that you may not take part in the discussion and decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership on council. If you have pecuniary interest, you are to disclose that you have an interest and its general nature. You are to abstain from any discussion of the matter and from voting. You are to leave the room until the matter has been dealt with, and you should make sure that your absenteeism is recorded in the minutes. You are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in a public hearing as a member of the public. So I will declare the public hearing open and ask the development officer to explain the purpose and the effect of the proposed bylaw and explain the procedure rules to be as follows. Presentations before council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving the information, and it will not be necessary for the persons giving the information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. No debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. So persons addressing council will state their name and address, indicate if they're speaking on their own behalf or for a client, company, or citizens group. And so I'll call for the first, so we have our development officer to make the presentation.
I believe
Sloan.
it's, I think it's Mr. Persh from PSPS.
Oh, okay.
PCPS that presenting on behalf of the administration.
Thank you very much, Mr. Persia.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just pull up my screen here. Hopefully you can all see that. So you should be seeing here an aerial photo for lots 1 and 2, block 54, plan 131-1897, which are subject to bylaw 2021-10. To proposing to redesignate the area from industrial business district to light industrial district. The area was previously approved for automotive repair and service use. However, the intent of this bylaw is to allow for the possible operation of a salvage yard, which is a discretionary use under the light industrial district. So the proposed area, along with the surrounding areas to the south here, to the east and to the north, are all identified for industrial use through the Town of Old's Municipal Development Plan. However, as you can see from the photo, the area to the west includes the railway. It has 50th Ave, and you have country residential parcels here along the west. So because of this close proximity to residential areas on the west, a few issues arise, including the visual impacts of stacked vehicles and other salvage yard materials that can be seen across 50th Ave, the potential for noise, transmission of dust, fumes and odors. You also have possible environmental impacts. So currently the proposed site that's highlighted in yellow here is developed for industrial use, and storage of vehicles to be salvaged is occurring on site. So if I scroll down here to photo 2, photo 2 shows the view along the west boundary, where you can see the screening covers the majority of the salvage yard storage area, but does not extend the entirety of the lots. So you can see the black here and the unfinished here. Scrolling down further to photo 3, again, shows the view from the west from across 50th Ave this time, providing an idea of the view for the residential parcels. The stacked vehicles are still visible for those residents that are located further south. So as you can see here, there is some slight visibility, especially as you move further south. Photo 4 helps to show the material and efforts made by the applicant to begin screening the property. This includes placing a black tarp across a chain link fence. However, as noted previously, the tarp and fence do not fully extend to the south edge of the property. And overall, the area is largely flat with an unobstructed view from the west. So towards those, or from those residential parcels. So with the changing from industrial business district to light industrial district, there comes a number of new uses. For example, for permitted uses, there is only the addition of greenhouse wholesale from what was previously possible, and this would pose few issues or impacts on surrounding properties. If I scroll down further here, though, the additional discretionary uses can be seen on screen here, the list here. Some notable ones include livestock auction markets, railway uses, and salvage yard. However, each discretionary use is reviewed for its suitability by the Municipal Planning Commission or MPC. And so MPC may then evaluate the proposal and its impacts on surrounding properties and possible mitigation. So coming back to this proposal here. So now mitigation can largely be done through the land use bylaw during the development permit approval process. So there are policies and provisions to address impacts such as view, noise, dust, and odors, as I mentioned previously. As an example, under the light industrial district, there are supplementary regulations where permitted or discretionary use must comply with what is listed here. So no excessive dust, vibration, or odors, noise, smoke, and other potential detrimental impacts on adjoining properties. Roadways are managed to the satisfaction of the development authority. So part 2, section 7 of the land use bylaw also notes that conditions can be included with the development permit approval. So here you'll see a list of some of the conditions that may be included. So limiting the time of operation, including the hours of the day, limiting the number of patrons, requiring attenuation or mitigation of noise, regarding the location, character, and appearance of buildings, regarding the grading of the site or such other matters, and establishing the period of time during which a development may continue. And then, so then continuing on, you have additional section under Schedule B, Section 6, sorry, that also notes the requirements for screening for all industrial districts. So this just notes that you're allowed to place fencing or screening along industrial districts that are adjacent to different uses. Now, because of the concerns and the potential impacts on the nearby residential properties, it is also being proposed that the special provisions for the subject site be added regarding the height of stacked vehicles or vehicle bodies. And this would be added specifically to the light industrial district, which they are applying to be amended to. So you can see that here. This is also being suggested as there is currently no regulations regarding the height of stacked vehicles or height of larger vehicles, such as school buses, regarding salvage yards. So continuing down here, additionally, concerns regarding environmental impacts were expressed during the review process. It's important to note that the environmental regulations would fall under provincial legislation, and that approval here or approval of a development permit does not mean that improper storage or handling of chemicals is allowed or accepted. They are still required to meet those proper regulations. So for input, we received one written letter and 2 calls from the public. These largely touched on concerns regarding the sounds and sights impacts, concerns about safe operating practice and its enforcement, concerns about the height of stacked vehicles, and concerns of environmental impacts. From referral agencies, we received comments from ATCO Pipelines and TELUS, who had no concerns. However, we did receive comments from Alberta Transportation outside of the circulation period and the preparation of this package. So they noted no concerns, but they did have some comments, which I will bring up on screen here. As you can see, Alberta Transportation has no objections. They largely would just like to be included in the circulation if this is to go through during the development permit stage, so that they may provide further comments at that point. So with that being said, I'd like to scroll back up here to the recommendation. So with that being said, it is recommended that bylaw, proposed bylaw 2021-10 be amended by adding item 2, Schedule C, Light Industrial District, as can be seen here, and that council gives a second reading to bylaw number 2021-10 as amended, and that council gives third reading to bylaw number 2021-10 as amended. And at this point, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Does council have any questions of the development officer? Counselor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I have a couple of items. So the black tarp that goes around the fence. Now, the stacking vehicles is going to be, if approved, 3.5 meters or 11.48 feet. So is the fence going to be that high as well? So that it's not visible to the public?
If I may touch on that, Madam Chair. So under the land use bylaw, there was section, I can scroll to it here. Right here, Schedule B, Section 6. It allows for a fence or screening of determined height by the development authority to be put in place. So you can put a condition on there to match the height of, or the suggested height of stackable vehicles and salvage yard materials there. So yes, that is something that can be put in place.
Thank you very much, Counselor Overwater. One more question before we go to the public. Oh, sorry, Counselor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I'm going to go along further with Council Overwater's comment, and that is, do we know how high that fence is at all at this point?
If I can touch on that again. So we have a general idea of around 3 meters there. When looking at the height of a bus, actually, sorry, if I can scroll up here. Here, you can see about a foot worth of bus here above the fence there. So the general height of buses usually comes to just above 3 meters. And so this fence here would largely be close to 3 meters of the current fence, sorry.
Counselor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. So the fence, my understanding would be continued all around that property. And also, well, I do have another comment. May I carry on or not? No, Counselor Blatz has something.
Counselor
So,
Blatz.
okay, so
Okay.
if you can answer my question
Yeah.
about the fence will go all around the whole property, is my understanding correct? Where is he? Oh, he's in there.
Thank you. So currently, the fence is, as can be seen here, it's a little difficult. This photo provides a little bit better detail. So there is no chain link fence continuing here. There is currently no requirement for them to finish it at this time. However, that can be attached to the development permit stage. So when they come back for, if this was approved, when they come back for a development permit for the use of salvage yard, that is a condition that can be attached to the development permit, that they finish and improve the fence as required.
I just do a supplemental to that.
Supplemental question.
Yes, so why would we only have a partial fence around only partially of the property? Why would we not have a fence all around the whole property? That doesn't make sense to me.
So just regarding that, it's just, this is what's there currently. At the development permit stage, we can have it required that the whole west side here, be fenced for appropriate screening from the residential properties there. So at this moment, this is what's currently in place, but at the development permit stage, we can have further fence continued and put in place.
Counselor Blatz, Counselor Thompson, and then back to Ryan, but I believe legislative clerk,
Procedure is that you do your call outs first before you go to council comments.
it says that we can do clarification purposes. Yeah. And I would like to move on to the public process part of it. If you're clarifying the presentation
Yes.
is what I'm going to. clarifying the presentation, right? Okay,
Thank you. Going along to the environmental issues, and I just want clarification on this. Do we have any concerns though with environmental? Would there be any fire hazard to this? Or any issues that could be potential, because we're surrounding a residential or close to a residential area. We've already seen what happened in BC as far as sparks with potential trains. And would this be a potential fire hazard? And I hope that's the appropriate question for this point in time. For clarification, thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair. So all regulations for in the kind of environmental concerns fall under provincial legislation. So I did have a discussion through the review process with some members of the Alberta Environment and Parks. Where they kind of would require registration or application through Alberta Environment and Parks largely comes down through their storage of chemicals and operation along those lines. So in this case, if they were storing chemicals for a year or longer, that would require a EP approval, or if they were storing chemicals or operating for with 10, I believe it was 10 tons or more, that would also require AUP approval. However, in terms of just regulations, they are required to follow along with the provincial regulations and would need to meet that. And hopefully that answers your question.
Madam Chair, if I may to add to that, the fire code would also continue to apply with the change in use as well. So in terms of managing fire hazard, you do use that tool to help with those kind of cases.
very much, Mr. Teal. So does anybody have further questions of the development in reference to clarification only before we go to the public participation? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Deputy Worship. My clarifying question was, as this is a zoning discussion, the fencing, the total use of the facility, whether there was more than one tenant and whether that tenant had fence or another didn't, and the fire issues, those would all be handled by the Municipal Planning Commission or by the by Mr. Sloan, would they not? In application?
Yes, they would be. That would be part of the application process. So we are talking only about the item in reference to amending the zoning for discretionary use. So we'd like to go back, and if you'd like clarification in reference to the presentation, that's great. Or would you like to wait, Councillor Ryan, for the public part of the presentation?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. This was just a very quick little clarification. I just wanted to know on the phone calls that you received, were they from residents or businesses or both, or did you make a note of that?
Thank you. So all calls were from residents within the area, not necessarily directly adjacent. No comments were received from businesses or other industrial properties surrounding it, just residential properties.
Okay, thank you.
We will move on to call for the first time for those in support of the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. So we do have people in the gallery. If you'd like to make a presentation, please come up, state your name and address. And if you're speaking for yourself, a client, company, or citizens group, and you can come up right up to beside our fire chief and state your name.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Harper and councillors and everyone else here. So to begin with, my name is Alan Hickok. I'm here with my wife Patsy and also the other two people involved with the business as proposed here. I'm the owner of the company Diamond Head Properties that runs that particular lot and where that business is. So been working on that as kind of a project for quite some time. I believe it was like back in 2003 when I first viewed that property in its current state, as it was being converted from the feed mill. And I saw what it could be made better use of at that point, and over quite some time have developed it into this multi-use tenant facility that it is now. And it's been quite a process to get there. One of the things that I look back on when I first viewed it, which was interesting because of this rezoning application, was that the real estate information that was presented to me on the purchase offer was that it was heavy industrial zoning. And the only time I became aware that it was not that zoning, that it was industrial business, was when I sat with the lawyer to finalize the papers. He says, just so you know, by the way, it may not materially affect your purchase at this point, late stage, but it is actually industrial business zoning. So that was my first view of that indication of the zoning. So just my clarification is that my initial view of the property was that it had a heavy industrial use. So in the years since then, that zoning has not materially changed the businesses that have been able to, go be tenants and be part of this community. And we've had, quite a number of tenants that have benefited this community with their input and so now at this point, we're at the stage of, I believe, attracting a good, needed business to this community in the form of like recycling. I believe that is something that everybody would support in a big way. And this is just a different form of recycling. It's called a salvage yard in a sense, but the reality of it, it's really about repurposing, recycling. And one of the things that I think supports this change is the fact that it is beside the railroad tracks. What better type of industry and zoning where better to place it, but where you have all that noise and commotion and disruption already. It's already exists. Has exists for decades. It will exist for I don't know how long into the future. So I believe that location fits very well. I do recognize the residences are quite a ways across the tracks and the street. And I drove by there several times myself and looked at it. And even before this, it's always been that type of use. I believe this change actually will enhance the view, but with the screening to make it it'll actually be a nicer view for residents going forwards than it has been in the decades past. So I believe this is an enhancement primarily. I've had quite a number of both other businesses and residents in town voice or support of the type of business that they would be able to make use of. They believe it's a great thing for the town. And I believe it is too. Most everybody here would at some point either or know somebody that would make use of this type of a business and what it offers. What else can I say? If there are any questions, I guess I could certainly answer them. Some of the questions that came up about the fencing, I probably have firsthand knowledge of if you need clarification. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hickok. Councillor Overwater, do you have a clarification question?
Not clear. I just wanted to ask him a question.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Councillor
Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Hickok, I'm curious how many tenants you have on the premise and how much of the picture or the landmass that we saw on the screen will be occupied by the salvage yard, if approved.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Councilor Thompson. So there is room for about 7 tenants, separate tenants. It's 2 lots. The screened lot is the screened area fences in a separate lot. That's why it's actually that way. And that is the lot that is intended for the vehicles only. The rest of it that has not yet been fenced it's never been used primarily for any of that purpose. It's just the common area for the other tenants in the building part of it. So but that is, having said that, it is a work in progress to continue fencing, screening, of the like. Sorry, did I answer everything, or is there another part to that? Currently, so the tenants that are currently making use of the salvage yard. So there is the one tenant that's 1.1 acres, that screen fenced lot. The other lot that encompasses the building with the warehousing and shop space is the remainder, which is 2.6 acres. So the bulk of it. And the salvage, or the trackside recycling business, that is the name of it, is currently utilizing the 1.1 acre lot, as well as a shop space that is 2,650 square feet, and a front loading dock space that's another 1,100 square feet. So that's their makeup currently. You know, it's a good part of the building, but there's still other tenants that make up a bigger chunk of the space usage.
Thank you, Councillor Overwater, and then Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. So would you be crushing vehicles there? Like, I'm just kind of thinking about the noise impact. Like, would you be, like, I mean, there is a noise bylaw, and I'm just wondering how loud that does get, or like how late you'd be open crushing vehicles.
Could I refer that to the actual operator of that question, Ali here, if I can invite him up for that, because he's better
speaking in favor of
to
the
speak to
bylaw,
that.
so yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ali, would you like to speak to that a little bit?
That's fine. So what I have.
Please state your name and your address.
Ali Jua, and my company is just at the same building, 4250
Okay.
47 Ave.
Okay, can you spell your name out for our legislative clerk?
Sorry, ALYJIWA. What's his address? I didn't hear that.
And your address.
Do you want my home address, or where my business is currently located? I guess in
Your
regards
home.
to Olds, it would matter to 4250 47 Ave.
Go ahead now.
Okay, so just to answer the council Overwater's
Crushing question.
the crushing question is it's open up for debate. The crushing part of, so just to clarify, first of all, that this is a used auto parts business and recycling, so that is secondary to the primary focus of this business. And as for the crushing part, would be the removal of the hulks or the remains of the vehicles, and that would probably take place either once a year when there's an accumulation, because you can't get vehicles crushed. We don't personally crush any vehicles. We may transport them to a salvage yard, which does handle those kinds of metals, and our hours of operation would be limited to noise bylaws, obviously, and we pretty much some Monday to Friday operation. We got the railway that passes by there, so I mean, I don't think we would be nearly as loud as that train that comes by almost every hour.
So Councillor Bennett, do you have a question, clarification to? Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just curious to the property owner. So the pictures that I'm seeing of the vehicles, so you have many tenants, and am I looking at many tenants' vehicles there? Or
You are, in some respects, some of those vehicles are other tenants. That is correct. And there has, for years and years, there's never been any. I personally haven't had any feedback about their tenants' vehicles as they are. And so
No, that
it-
wasn't my question,
okay,
but I just
but,
wanted to know if
yeah.
they belong to others or this business.
So the lot that is now screened and fenced, which has
Yes.
happened just in the past less than a year
Yeah.
type of thing. Those, anything in that screen fence
Yeah.
lot is the tenants
Okay,
exclusively, yes.
thank you.
Thank you very much. So are you wanting clarification to this presenter? Okay, Counselor Blatz and then Counselor Ryan.
Thank you, your worship, through you to either Mr. Hickok or Ally. So this entire yard will in fact be fenced and screened to whatever specifications that you're giving. Will it also be locked during the off hours to ensure that we're not going to have a number of people either going in there and helping themselves to salvage or salvaging or theft? You know, will that present an issue as well?
Yes, thanks, Councilor Blatz. Yes, as good business practice, absolutely. Those are paramount things. And we have for several months been kind of put on hold any more work on that aspect simply to get this past this stage. But that is going forward. You'll see a lot of it happen now.
Thank you so much.
Hey, Counselor Ryan, you have a question for clarification.
I do. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Just to go back to the fence, you were mentioning that you would have firsthand knowledge of how high that fence is. So could you tell me how high that fence is?
Certainly, Councilor Ryan. So where the fence is along the railroad tracks, that is just over 8-foot height fencing. And then you saw the picture of the fence on 47th Avenue, and that is at 6 foot in height. So I'm not sure what will come out of the requirement. I was assuming that the west side that faces the residence would require the larger screening, not necessarily facing east to the other industrial, but I'm not sure yet.
Great, thank you very much.
Counselor Overwater, you have a clarification
I
question.
do have a clarification question. Thank you, Counselor and Deputy Mayor Harper. Would you be storing batteries there? Like, like car batteries when you, you get these vehicles in and would you be storing those batteries?
Go ahead, Alex.
So basically what would happen with batteries would be, they wouldn't necessarily be stored, they get sold as scrap, or they would be either recycled and resold. So yes and no to answer
Okay, the
question.
only reason I question that is I'm the chair of the Solid Waste Commission, and we do have issues with people stealing batteries for their meth projects that they have. So, they leak the fence and take the battery and the acid that's in there. So I'm just wondering if you have that contained in a locked compartment. Should you have batteries there? Because once they know it's there, they.
So the way that would be handled is the batteries would be removed from vehicles when they arrive. We don't keep any of the valuables, particularly on vehicles when they go into the yard, just to prevent theft and fire hazards. And then they would be stored inside, and there would be containment in case there's any leaks, and kept in a secure and separate area where there is matting that could soak up any potential leaching.
Okay, thank you. So we will call for a second time for people who are in support of the proposed bylaw.
That would be me.
That would be you.
Yeah,
So would you
I was
like
waiting
to
for that.
make a further presentation
Okay,
in support of the bylaw?
all right.
And I believe our legislative clerk has your name now.
Okay, so we're past that part. So just to apprise everyone of the situation of where we are and how we got here and why we're here essentially is back in February, the company had just formed. We had applied for a license. On our application that we had put was Trackside Auto Parts and Recycling. And
I had some.
Mr. Penn.
I have to go to that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm very concerned about it. I'm his neighbor.
all right, so at the time we were given a license and we proceeded to operate our business. It came to our knowledge, part of starting this business was also having the place fence and to be able to comply with municipal regulations. And at that time, we had the landowner build a fence, we screened it, and that was all put on hold because of the current situation that we're in, or whether or not we were going to be able to proceed. So at that point, I don't know the date that we discovered this, but it's been many months now that we've been waiting to get this to decide whether or not we can go forward with significant investment. So also, again, to clarify, this is a used auto parts business. The recycling part of it is secondary. As a consequence of selling used auto parts, you're going to be left with vehicle shells that will need to be recycled. So in terms of the environmental concerns that we have that covered in terms of we don't create any dust, and there is proper storage of chemicals. Refrigerant is a common threat to the environment that is in vehicles. We have a machine that will extract that and contain it. Gasoline would be stored in proper tanks, and oil, coolant, all be stored separately in different tanks and indoors as well. And yeah, so that's as for environmental concerns. Fire hazards, for as far as fire suppression, there are multiple fire extinguishers all over the yard at strategic locations, as well as inside. There's a few large totes of water as well that can be used in case there is a fire. We've also spoken with the fire department in regards to proper fire suppression and what should be done and what shouldn't be done. And as for noise that we manage by our hours of operation, we wouldn't have any between regular hours, 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, not open on the weekends. And just go on my notes here. I've covered all my points here.
Okay.
We're just hoping that we can
Thank you
go forward with our business.
Very much. So we have now called for the first time for those who are opposed to the proposed bylaw to make a presentation.
So my name's James Rosenberger, 4102 50th Ave. I live right across the street from the junkyard that has gone in. I'm obviously opposed to amending. It was disappointing to see a junkyard be put in without appropriate permitting that we have to have the meeting today for. The junkyard does back onto railroad track. So that's the backyard to the wrecker. That's my front yard. So I've been woken up before 7. So 6:30 in the morning to the sounds of forklifts rattling around on a gravel yard. If you take a grocery cart with a flat wheel and just magnify that, that's what I get to wake up to on certain mornings. Backup alarms that are going off, maybe or maybe not on the forklifts, but backup alarms continuous when they're operating. I've had hours of operation in the evening. So after 6 in the evening, the sounds of cars being started, driven around inside the site. No dust. There's lots of dust when you drive the cars around in there. And so you have cars without mufflers being driven, being revved, testing engines, that kind of thing. I witnessed the fire that happened already on the site. A car was elevated in the lot. Somebody was torching off a part, auto recycling, cutting off the part. Whether it came across a gas line or brake line, fire broke out, poured onto the ground. No fire extinguishers. I'm presuming that the conversation with the fire department was after the fire. But so the ability to put the fire out didn't happen. They walked to the other buildings on the site that you saw outside the fenced area. to go get a fire extinguisher, by that time was fully engulfed. They had to drop the car down. You have a whole yard of these cars in my front yard, and whole yard of cars. They're all tight quarters. As much as recycling may sound like it's nice if you could haul the vehicle inside, it doesn't happen inside. It happens outside. And so those parts are being cut off. The fire happened. And we have lots of flammable fluids. We had lots of stuff hitting the ground. So obviously not everything was taken out of the cars at those times. Hours of operation, later into the evening, right away early in the morning. It isn't a 9 to 5. I called Bylaw. They said, in fact, they can go any hour that they want. So they can be in full operation anytime they want. We talked about car crushing, not at this moment. I don't know if you want a car crusher in the back of your, or in the front of your yard across the street from you. I don't. These are country residential. The purpose of country residential within the community is to provide a nice quiet area. The train is nothing compared to that. Those forklifts rattling around, the sounds of electric air hammers, 3 in the morning over there. I was woken up again, 3 in the morning, whether it's somebody who jumped the fence or whether it was employees talking, having conversation, taking parts off. And so I'm obviously opposed. My other neighbors didn't have time to wait. One had to get back to work. Obviously, the other had a doctor's appointment. Similar complaints that we share. The lights off the building, they shine towards us. So our places are nicely lit up. The pictures from the road, that was very good. Now you go up 5 feet like our houses are, and we see right into the auto wrecker. And so we have a lot of concerns about not the fact that somebody can have an auto wrecking business. Go ahead. It's a business that's out there. The location is very inappropriate. Right across from country residential inside the community. It's not zoned for it. My recommendation, my appeal on behalf of my neighbors as well, is to allow this business to happen in an appropriate site away from residential. I have no clue how that happened, that it was going to be, that this was a good idea. Somebody thought this was a good idea to put this in the front yard of people. We have an industrial area where we have our pot plants. That's a great area. We have places that are away from residences. Those are great areas. This is very inappropriate. The screen fence, it's a fence. Doesn't change the noise, doesn't change the hours of operation, doesn't change the environmental hazards if that yard would have went up because they were working in very close proximity to other vehicles with a torch. Doesn't change any of those things. And not to mention property values. That's your neighbor across the street. Nothing personal against the business, just a very wrong spot for the community to put an auto salvage place. So my other neighbors didn't have time to stay, but we all kind of share the same concerns.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing your concerns. So I will call for the second time for those opposed to the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. I will call for the first time for those persons deemed to be affected by the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. I will call for a second time for those persons deemed to be affected by the proposed bylaw to make a presentation. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, you've been recorded as being opposed. No, you had your opportunity. Thank you. So I will ask council for some comments, if you have any further comments right now before the ending of the public hearing. And I will ask the development officer, Scott Purich, to make his final comments. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I was wondering if we could hear from Director Andrew with regards to the fire issue that has been raised.
Director Andrew.
Yes, Councillor Ryan through the chair. Yeah, as far as the fire situation goes, I wouldn't say that fires are common, but they do happen. And, you know, any business, regardless of commercial or industrial in nature, those businesses are subject to the provisions of the Alberta Fire Code. And as we are made aware of them, they are addressed and rectified. And so any business that's operating in town are subject and have been inspected. I do know that the current operating business has been inspected by our fire inspector, and I'm not aware of any outstanding deficiencies or issues that arose as a result of that fire. And again, it's just a piece that as we're made aware, as new businesses come in, there are opportunities where we do miss that that initial inspection before they would open, but we're also closing those loopholes with our process with planning and development. And so that's getting rare in its occurrence.
So thank you very much, Director Andrew. I had to stop and think. Sorry about that. So we all have final comments by Mr. Purich from Parkland Community Planning.
Thank you. So just a few comments to touch on some of the matters that were discussed earlier along the lines of operating hours and times. I did want to point out that under the land use bylaw, you are allowed, or MPC, sorry, is allowed the development permit stage to apply conditions regarding operating time and hours. Another note I wanted to mention and touch on was just fence. Again, the pictures show the current fence. However, it can be required to be taller and upgraded to better mitigate sounds and sights at the development permit stage, to be larger and to have boards or the like, so that sound kind of bounces off and goes up rather than directed directly towards the west. So those are some possible things that can be utilized through the land use bylaw at the time of the development permit. Other than that, that was really all I wanted to touch on at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will declare the public hearing for bylaw 2021-10 closed. So we will move on for second reading of bylaw 2021-10 as amended. Is anybody prepared to make a motion? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that council gives second reading to bylaw number 2021-10 as amended.
Are there any questions? Councillor Platts.
Point of
Thank
order, Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor Mazuchka, do we not have an amendment in front of us before we consider second reading? I believe on the RFD, we have public hearing to be held, which we just satisfied. And then we have a proposed amendment to the bylaw.
Oh, I do apologize. I thought that was done at our first reading.
You didn't vote. You didn't vote. The
You
motion.
didn't vote?
And it didn't get read.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much, Your Worship. We will go back there to have council amend bylaw 2021-10 by adding the following items. So Councillor Thompson.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Your Worship. Through the Deputy Mayor, I would move that council amend bylaw number 2021-10 by adding the following item as item 2. Special provisions for salvage, that Schedule C Light Industrial District I1 is amended by adding special provisions for salvage yard on lots 1 and 2, block 54, plan 131, 1897. The maximum height for stacked vehicles or any other materials waiting to be salvaged or partially salvaged shall not exceed 3.5 meters or 11.48 feet. And
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I just want to be, I need clarity. I just want to make sure that the restrictions imposed, should this go through, would come to Municipal Planning Commission. Is that correct? I just want to be clear that that's what would happen. Who's going to answer that?
Mr. Peerage, and we do have Mr. Sloan in our gallery as well.
Thank you. So this amendment would be go directly to the land use bylaw. It would be adding this wording to the land use bylaw under the light industrial district. So under the land use bylaw and in that district, you would have special provisions that note this wording that was read out previously here. And so it would apply specifically to this lot and not to other, or sorry, to these lots and not to others. So this would be a requirement for these lots in salvage if the salvage yard is approved. Hopefully that answers your question.
Madam Chair, if I may add to that. Madam, the short answer is yes. If the bylaw amendment is approved by council, the entire development permit, including the mitigation measures, would be determined by Municipal Planning Commission upon recommendation from the development officer.
Thank you, Mr. Teal. That does clarify my question.
Councillor Ryan, you have a question in reference to the motion.
I do, but Councillor Blas, I believe is first.
Sorry, Councillor Platt.
Well, that's fine, because actually, Mr. Teal did answer my question, and that was going to be mine, and I was also going to correct you that we did need to do the amendment first. So thank you.
Councillor Ryan.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I just have a suggestion for the amendment area of it not exceeding the height of the what is it, 8 feet? Is that correct? Yes, 8 feet as opposed to the 3.5 meters. I don't know what I don't have my calculator in front of me to figure out the meter size, but I think it should not. I would rather not see anything going above the fence that is already there, and stipulating at 3.5 meters. Well, you're asking for the people to, if this gets approved and goes through, to tear down what they've already just built and put a higher fence up, because I think that the requirement would be that we wouldn't want anything visible for the residents across the road. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to look on vehicles above a fence line either. And I think it'd be prudent for us to make sure that any kind of business would be hidden from public view, and also not just for the residents that live in that area, but also potential thieves who might want to say, oh, that's an interesting little thing. Let me just climb this fence and go over it and do whatever they're going to do. Criminal behavior is whatever it is. So I would like to see the amendment doing that, limiting the height to the 8 feet.
Councillor Thompson, before you have any comments.
Yeah, Your Worship, I would speak against that. My sense is that most motorhomes, buses, many of these types of vehicles are more than 8 feet, and the 11.84 as was specified, 11.48 that was specified, I believe was specified because it accommodated those types of vehicles, which I think is practical for this type of application.
Director Wagstaff has a comment, and then back to Councillor Ryan.
Further for this, it is my understanding that the provincial regulations require that they can't be stacked above whatever fence height that they have. So they would not be able under provincial regulations to stack above whatever their screened fence is. That's irrespective of what council decides that limit can be, but that is a regulation as I understand it.
Back to Councillor Ryan then.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper, and I appreciate the comments from Director Wagstaff because, it would limit them, then they would not be able to take those bigger vehicles, but then that's fine too. I mean, those bigger vehicles will go elsewhere. But I think that, what would you rather have? You rather have an expense of putting up a 12-foot fence or, 11.48-foot fence, taking down what you've already have, or you're gonna comply to the 8 feet. So my thinking is that there's already a fence there. They've already put the expense in to build a fence. And they would just move those vehicles out of there that are too tall for that area.
Okay, Councillor Thompson has a comment, and then we'll see if Councillor Ryan's prepared to amend the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Harper. This motion does not speak to a fence. It only speaks to stackable height. And so I just wanted to point that out.
So yes, and Councillor Ryan is indicating that the height should be less. So,
Thank
Councillor.
Deputy Mayor, I would then ask for an amendment to limit the stackable height to the 8 feet.
So we have a motion by Councillor Ryan to amend the amendment to read waiting to be salvaged or partially salvaged shall not exceed 8 feet, whatever that is in meters. Somebody will calculate. What is it? 2.4 meters. Thank you very much, Councillor Overwater. So we do have the amendment to read, and I would call for the vote on that amendment. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is defeated. Oh, sorry. Mayor Majiska, I keep forgetting you. Okay, the motion is defeated.
I was opposed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we'll go back to the original motion as amended. Amendment.
Can I
Yes.
speak? Can I?
Yes, you can speak.
I thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think when this comes to MPC would be the body that could put restrictions on whether or not the fence goes higher or lower or all the way to the end of the property. I think that's kind of where we're at with that. And I think it would also speak to, once we get into it, that MPC would speak to the noise as well. So I think that governing body would put restrictions on.
Thank you very much. So we're back to the motion for council to amend bylaw 2021-10 with the following. So all in favor of the motion? There's 4 in favor. Opposed? Motion is carried. So we will move on to the third reading of bylaw 2021 as amended. Oh, Councillor, Mayor Majiska. Mayor Majiska, yes, second reading. Thank you. Second reading of the bylaw. I mute this, sorry, guys. So we'll move on to second reading of the bylaw 2021 as amended. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much. I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2021-10 as amended.
Thank you very much. So does anybody have any comments? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I'd just like to say to the gallery, at that point in time, when this comes to MPC, there is another opportunity to speak to this, whether there's restrictions or whatever else that we could put on this property. So there is another opportunity. This isn't your only final opportunity. So I just wanted to make that clarity to the gallery.
I'd like to make a comment. I haven't spoken for or against this bylaw as yet, but I'd like to say that I recognize that this is light industrial. However, I believe that for a salvage yard to be in this part of our community is not right. So that's why I'll be voting against it again. So second reading, we have it right. Councillor Bennett, all in favor? So the motion is defeated. So we will move on. So you know that there will not be a third reading of this bylaw. Correct? Okay, thank you. So we have another public hearing. Public hearing to be held for bylaw 2021-15 and 2021-16 at the same time, correct? Okay. So section 172 of the MGA says that you may not take part in the discussion.
Point of order.
Oh, sorry.
You don't have to read it in the gallery. No. Yes, absolutely. You can just speak to there's no one in the gallery, so
Yes.
because no one can see the gallery on the video.
Yes.
So just identify that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I declare the public hearing open. As the development officer to explain the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaw. And who will be speaking to that? Is it Scott? Oh,
Yes.
Mr. Tito. Scott,
Yeah,
thank you.
I will be sharing my screen here again. Should be seeing a map here. So thank you, Madam Chair. So bylaw 2021-15 and 2021-16 are being presented together as they regard the same issue, but propose to amend different bylaws. So to start off, you should be seeing a photo of lots 9 and 10, block 8, plan 2186H, and the surrounding area. So under bylaw 2021-16, it proposes to redesignate lot 9 and 10, so as highlighted here, from light industrial district to central commercial district. So the intent of the amendment is to allow for residential use, which is not currently possible under the light industrial district. So this would also require an amendment to the Uptown Olds area redevelopment plan. So currently, the Town of Olds Municipal Development Plan, the area is identified for uptown commercial mixed use, but the MDP defers to the land use boundaries and recommendations of the ARP. So for this area and under the ARP, the area is designated for commercial use. So the ARP allows for mixed use commercial, where commercial is the primary use and located on the ground floor, while residential is the secondary use and located above the ground floor. So bylaw 2021-15 proposes to amend the Uptown Olds area redevelopment plan by adding a policy to allow residential use to be a primary use for the area east of 49th Ave, so 49th Ave here, east of 49th Ave and between 48th Street and 49th Street, so between here. I'd also like to point out here that the boundary for the ARP ends right behind the area that's being proposed. So that's why it does not have a boundary along the east. Coming back here. And take a second to scroll back up. There we go. So the proposed area is currently being used for residential use and for office purposes. And the area retains largely the residential appearance as can be seen in photo 1 here for the view of lots 7 and 10, and in photo 2 here for the view of lots 1 and 6. So it's important to note that lots 9 and 10 are currently being used for office purposes, but they do have a history of residential use with a development permit switching the building from residential to office use in 1995. It's also important to note that allowing residential use would have a relatively small to no impact on the use of the surrounding areas within this area of the AROP. So the surrounding area is currently designated as general residential district to the east, central commercial district to the west, and light industrial district to the north and south. However, as I noted before, here you can see that it is largely all commercial within this area and surrounding the proposed area here. So since first reading occurred on July 12, 2021, the proposed bylaw and public hearing were advertised and circulated to referral agencies and surrounding landowners. To date, no comments have been received from the general public and no concerns were noted by ATCO Gas. However, we did receive comments again from Alberta Transportation outside of the circulation period. AT had no objections, but they did have some additional comments, which I will bring up on screen here. So again, they had no objections, and it was largely just asking to be within the circulation of the development permit when they applied for residential use. However, they did not anticipate traffic impacts. So with that being said, go up here. So it is being recommended that proposed bylaw 2021 be given second reading and third reading, and that proposed bylaw 2021 be given second reading and third reading. At this point, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. So should we, Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Should we ask questions first and then make a motion?
I think we should proceed through the public hearing process. Even though there's nobody in the gallery, we should actually state that, and then you could ask questions, correct?
Correct. You do not have to do your call outs as there is no one in the gallery.
Okay. So we'll make note of that there's no one in the gallery to make presentations, and they will move down to councillor comments then.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to question, and that is for clarification. So the properties right next door to them are they residential then, or are they commercial, this commercial area?
Thank you. I will scroll down here. So in the property in question can be seen here, the large white building. So this one is currently being used for office space. And the buildings south of it are being used for residential purposes. And scrolling down, this is further south, just kind of ending off that little block, that little area that I had indicated before. I would scroll down here. So everything down here is being used for residential. Everything to the north here, I believe, is being used for industrial and commercial purposes.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions of to the development officer? Oh, Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you. I'll just ask one more, and since nobody else got their hand up, did we hear at all from Uptown Olds with regards to this? This is the Uptown area, so.
Thank you. I did circulate to the Uptown Olds Committee. However, I did not receive any response since then. So I have no comments from them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we then close the public hearing. Oh, Mayor, I broke your gavel, sorry. Close public hearing for bylaw 2021-15 and 2021-16. So could I entertain a motion to give a second reading to bylaw 2021-15? And Councillor Bennett.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2021-15 and
In favor of the motion. Council gives a motion for third reading to bylaw 2021-15. Councillor Ryan first.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that the council gives third reading to bylaw number 2021-15 and
All in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that council give second reading to bylaw number 2021-16 and.
Okay, any comments, questions? All in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Then back to Councillor Thompson then.
Yes, Your Worship, I would move that council give third reading to bylaw number 2021-16.
All in favor of the motion. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We go on to bylaw 2021-08 road closure. Page 64. Okay. And who's making that presentation?
That will be me, Madam Chairman. First up, if you wouldn't mind, I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Great. Pardon the pun, Madam Chairman, members of council, the long and winding road for a road closure bylaw that's returning to council hopefully for the last time. What's before council is second and third reading of bylaw number 2021-08. And this bylaw deals with the service road frontage in front of the brick and the closure of the area that you can see on the screen highlighted in red, which its next step, if council agrees to the road closure, will be a subdivision to get approximately 9 meters of dedication from the owner of the brick to the north to put in place the reverse service road concept that's called for in the Highway 27 functional plan. The municipal affairs, or sorry, not municipal affairs, Alberta Transportation gave us a relatively quick turnaround on the getting the approval by the minister and the bylaw back so it could be before council today. At the public hearing that we held back at the end of May, council certainly heard concerns and questions about the status of the existing lane to the rear of the property, going especially the portion of the concept that's been introduced behind the Circle K, and the status of the lane behind the houses here in terms of its physical condition and how easy that is to maneuver with the average passenger vehicle. Attached to your RFD are some options on how to address that lane. 3 options. One is the full build of a road. The other is curb and gutter, and then basically kind of scale down option 2 and 3. One using curb and gutter and one not, by and large. With the idea being that the options will be selected and the budget prices for those would come to council as part of your upcoming budget deliberations. The recommendation, Madam Chairman, is to grant second and third reading to move on with the road closure process and ultimately obtain the transfer of the land and facilitate the implementation of this portion of the Highway 27 functional plan. I'd be happy to field any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much. So do we want to give a second reading first, Councillor Overwater?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Yes, I move that council gives second reading to bylaw number 2021-08. And my question is, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were supposed to have a presentation from Alberta Transportation. Did I miss that meeting? Did we have it?
We had a presentation from Mr. Teal, who gave us the rundown in regards to the Highway 27, specifically the whole Highway 27 structural plan. What we're going to do is basically prioritize the various projects that transportation may want to either be alerted to that they could help us fund in regards to those various projects. And then we'll be looking at some operational lower priority items to talk to transportation about as well. So at this time, no, transportation does not have been not asked to come to council.
Okay, thank you, CAO Merritt. I thought we had quite a lengthy discussion about this, before approving this road closure, that we wanted to make sure that that back alley was going to be paved before anything actually is closed. So where is that somewhere happening? Have we decided that?
Mr. Teal was in his presentation, and it's on pages 68, 69. There's three options, but it's going to be in the 2022 capital plan for council to basically make a decision on of the extent of what the capital project would look like. Again, as this is a Highway 27 item, when a development occurs, that's the occasion to basically make adjustments to that plan. And
Just a comment that I have in reference to the road closure. I believe that this is good decision-making for us to do the road closure. I certainly understand the concern by the people at, I'll use the Circle K convenience store, have concerns over the fact that the laneway is not in very good shape. And I believe that our town crews have already done some grading in that area. Perhaps the councilor, Director Wagstaff can make comments on that, and to do a temporary further measures for that.
So I can
Director
comment
Wagstaff.
first on the current state. So we have done some grading there. We're going to continue to monitor that one and do additional grading, which isn't typical for an alleyway, but we recognize that is being traveled more than a regular alley. There are some, foundation pieces at the corner that soft spots are a problem for, but we are adding some gravel and ensuring that we're continuing to monitor it and smooth it out. That's an interim solution. What I did want to comment on here is, as was recognized in the risk consequences, this is the next step to be able to make any decisions from council as to what you want to do next. If this road closure was not to proceed, you'd have different options before you. So those options won't be presented to council in a budgetary process until we have a direction as to the road closure or not. That will guide the next recommendations to council.
Councilor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I have a question with regards to, well, I got a couple of questions, but I guess first of all, I wanted to find out how we would cover the cost of doing this Silvers Road and developing this area and behind the brick and Circle K.
Not sure we understand your question.
To be clear, who's paying for it?
When you talk about further development is what I was wondering. What further?
Well, the development of the service road. So like, is it from local improvement? Would it be our costs? What's the benefit of us closing the road in front if we're having to build another road in the back?
Yes, the cost basically would be part of our capital budget plan. It would be from either our cost or a combination of MSI or basically the gas tax. I know that's changing, whatever. But that's a proposal that we'll have to bring to council for budgetary consideration for 2022. And it is going to be the way for a number of the Highway 27 type of projects as they come for development. Very little money is associated with those other than through basically our capital programs that we basically bring to council every year. So, and this year we were fortunate with the highway, the 70th Avenue and Highway 27 item. That was another project that was identified in the Highway 27 plan, and we were able to get basically provincial funding for that.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you so much. And yes, I understand that, Mr. Merritt. Thank you for that clarification. So then when it does come to the council for budget presentation, probably in November, December, whenever we would do that, or whenever the next council would do that, then this will definitely be a priority for the spring of 2022.
Guaranteed it'll be a item that will be brought before council to decide whether it's a priority or not.
Thank you for
It's up
that.
to you to make that decision. It's up to us to bring it to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I was just wondering if by closing the roadway, are we at all limiting traffic vehicles from going around like the typical traffic pattern that is already there? Or, you know, so I just want to make sure that people still have access.
Director Wagstaff could make comments on it, but really this road closure will not see an effect at all right now.
That's what I want to make sure.
But Director Wagstaff should speak to it.
That's correct. You know, the long term of this there would be better access to this lot, more controlled access, as there will be improvements both by the developer as well as the town to correct the sidewalk and the passage through there. The other portion of that, as you'll see in one of the options, will be, you know, how we can adjust that laneway. And there's a number of options that we've discussed in operations as to how that can appropriately happen.
So prepared to vote on the motion as presented? Okay, Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Okay, we already see a lot of vehicles, well, I do anyway, turning into those pork chops, as we call them, that you're facing east, you're going east, but they're turning into them. And I know they're not supposed to be doing that because they're only supposed to be able to come out of there and go right in, right out, or in whatever it is. So I'm just wondering if when we close this off more and then go to the back alley as such before a decent road is built, is that going to enhance people doing that more often? Like I'm just wondering if there's going to be more traffic heading east, but they're going to turn north to get into that Circle K and into the Brick. Maybe not so much the Brick, but the Circle K.
If I'm understanding correctly, you're referring to the right in, right out that's in front of the hotel. That currently has been for 2 years, the traffic pattern that should be legally followed. So that's an enforcement piece that they're not to be turning left there. If they're heading east, eastbound traffic is not to be turning left there. And as you come out of there, you're not to be turning left as well. It's right in, right out. That would not change with this road closure. That's in existence today.
No, what I'm suggesting is it might have more people turning in there from going facing east, turning north into those right in, right outs. I know they're not supposed to, but I'm just thinking maybe they don't want to go around.
Councillor Overwater, there's not going to be any changes right now to what is currently there. So it's an enforcement piece right now. It will continue to be an enforcement piece. There's not going to be any changes, except for we're going to try to clear up that alleyway to make it better for people to start to actually use. Yeah, that's my understanding. Am I wrong?
Oh, I believe you captured it, Deputy. It's the intent that this is an enforcement issue and that we certainly hope that people will follow the situation and go in and out accordingly and appropriately. And obviously, if municipal enforcement or others in the traffic control see something, they will be addressing it.
I'll call for the vote. Councillor Ryan, do you have anything new to add? Anything new?
I'm not sure if it's new or not, but Deputy Mayor Harper, I just want to make sure that we continue to, if we're going in this direction, that we continue to stay vigilant on ensuring that that laneway is graveled or graded at all times. Like it's already starting to deteriorate at corners. I know that once it was done and Director Wagstaff told us about it, I noticed that it was done right away. But I go in and out of that area quite a bit, and I do see that it's already starting to decay. So I think we need to make sure that we stay on top of it. If we're closing things off, we have to make sure that there's a proper access for people. And that means even if we're not going to build the roadway until 2022, we need to make sure that that gravel area is smooth and not have gigantic ruts. So we need to stay vigilant on it.
I would like to add as part of that we ensure that there's some dust control measures.
Yeah,
as
that
well
too,
as
especially.
snow plowing measures for the winter.
Yes,
Director
exactly.
Wagstaff.
I do want to add that that has been the, process. Our service level is not to water for dust control in the alleyways, but we have been along this stretch because we recognize that the added grading does create greater dust. So we've been doing a combination of grading as well as watering to monitor that alley stretch.
Councillor Bennett.
I'm just curious, instead of watering, can you not apply the commercial anti-dust? Director Wagstaff?
I would have to ask operations more particular on that, but I do know we've been doing the grading watering regimen.
I just think the water disappears quickly and is mucky to begin with. And it's summertime and I don't want to drive around with a mucky car.
So we are ready to vote on this motion. Second reading of bylaw 2021-08, road closure. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried. So I'll call for third reading to bylaw 2021-08. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that council gives third reading to bylaw number 2021-08.
Any further questions? All in favor of the motion? Thank you. The motion is carried. Before we go on to new business, can we take a bit of a break? 7 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We'll call the meeting back to order. Next item on the agenda is request for decision, request for tax exemption. And I do need to declare that I would have pecuniary interest in reference to this application, as I'm a member of the fraternal organization that is requesting this exemption. So I've already talked to Councillor Blatz, who will be taking over this meeting, and I will be exiting the room.
Good afternoon, folks. I guess I will be moving along here and dealing with the request for tax exemption. And I think we would start with a motion
first and foremost, Counselor Overwater, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Blatz. I move that the application for property tax exemption submitted by Mountain View Lodge number 16 of the Grand Lodge of Alberta, AF and AM, be accepted for the 2022 taxation year.
Thank you so much. And I guess my apologies. We probably should have had Director of Finance, Ms. Linderman, speak to this prior to the motion. She threw me for a loop when she made me sit in the hot seat.
I wasn't going to mention it, but. All right, so today we have two requests from Mountain View Lodge number 16. The first request is an application for tax exemption. This application would be for the 2022 taxation year. As noted in the RFD, the MGA section 362 allows for exemption from taxation for properties that is held by a nonprofit and used for charitable or benevolent purposes. So along with this, there are some basic requirements that must be met. These requirements are also laid out in the RFD, but they come down to two main areas when determining an exemption. So the accessibility of the facility and the public benefit that arises from its use. Administration believes that Mountain View Lodge has met these requirements set forth in the tax exemption regulation.
Thank you, Director Linderman. All right, so I have asked for the motion. Any comments or concerns in regards to this? Counselor Ryan.
Thank you. I guess we shouldn't say Deputy Mayor here, actually, Councillor Blatz. So thank you, Councillor Blatz. I have a couple questions and I would like to ask Director Lindeman if we could get a tax breakdown on the one for 2021, what would be the actual municipal portion and the education and seniors? Do we know?
I do. So we're talking the exemption still for the 2022?
Oh, I'm
So
looking at.
that's a separate motion. Right now it's just the tax exemption for 2022.
Oh, okay. We're just talking 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. It's got the breakdown here then. And question not to you then. I'll ask a secondary question since that question is irrelevant yet. I'm sorry, I don't know the this order at all, and I don't have. I apologize for my ignorance with regards to this, but what is their main function? Anybody have a?
It's the Masonic Lodge.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Counselor Bennett.
Thank you for that. I was just going to ask the question to Councillor Ryan, who is the chair of Mountain View Seniors Housing. I'm just curious if other, the one in Sundre or anywhere else, have they also had this request from any lodge in their town?
Mr. Merritt, I think, has a comment regarding that.
Yeah, and this is not to do with the seniors housing. This is specifically to this organization, and the lodge is more of a organizational. Yeah, exactly. It's a terminology for what they call themselves, but it's not to do with seniors housing.
But it has to do with the lodge. No, their lodge?
Yes.
Thank you.
Under the service clubs that generally fit under this regulation are, oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. My apologies, Mayor.
Yeah.
Go
No,
ahead.
this is the Masonic Lodge, not to do with the seniors Mountain View Lodge. It's a service club like the Elks or the Kiwanis or Lions Club. Very, very similar organization, and they have one of the few service clubs who actually have their own building that they operate out of, and have struggled financially over the last few years with regards to making all their payments. So they're asking for a tax exemption going forward.
Thank you, Mayor Majewska. Any further comments or questions for the motion that we have on the floor? Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you, Councillor Blatz. Okay, my feeling is, and this is just a comment, is that I can understand about the municipal tax part, but I don't think we should be doing it for the education and the seniors. And Those are requisitions that come right out of taxpayer dollars. And these, the municipal tax revenue would be, and allowing them an exemption from our taxes. But they still have to pay those education and seniors taxes, and that would actually come out of taxpayer dollars. So I'm not in favor of that. I would be in favor of the municipal tax portion only.
Director Linderman, do you have any follow-up comments to that or?
No, I don't. Council can exempt to any status they want.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Overwater.
Thank you. Counselor Blatz, acting deputy. I can agree with Counselor Ryan that to exempt them from the municipal tax, it's no different. When we hear our community partners talking about the education tax that they have on oil rigs and so on and so forth in the county. So the education tax still has to be paid no matter what. So I can go with the exempt from municipal tax revenue.
Clarification then from our legislative clerk, we don't need to amend this first motion, do we? Because it says for property tax exemption only already. It doesn't indicate either the education requisition or.
I would look to Director Linderman
Okay,
to
thank you.
determine that.
Yeah, I would just add the word municipal, that the application for municipal property
Okay.
tax exemption.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
I will do a friendly amendment to that then.
Ms. T.O. Merritt.
It's just the other groups that basically have been mentioned here, do they not get the 3 taxes exempt, or is it just the municipal? Just for consistency sake, so to speak, I don't have the answer to that.
So none of these other service groups in here have exemption. We do have a few other groups, so it is their entire assessment that is exempt. So none of these specific ones on here have it, but we have in the past exempted the entire tax.
Counselor Overwater.
Thank you, Counselor Blatz. I think we should stay consistent, and I think going forward, because we're going to start from today, I guess, stay consistent and only exempt the municipal tax revenue, as we don't have any control over the other two. And, so if any of these service clubs do come forward, I think we should be consistent with what we're going to exempt them from. And like I said, the education and seniors, we don't have a choice. It's an in and out thing. We have to do it. Whereas we do have a choice with municipal tax revenue. So that would be my opinion.
Thank you. Counselor Ryan.
I concur with Councilor Overwater. We need to be consistent with this. And if we do have other groups that are getting the full deal, then we should bring them back to council. And also these exemptions should be done on a year-to-year basis, not an automatic.
Thank you. Mayor Majewska.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. My questions, Director Linderman. Are these other entities, they're not service groups? Like I pointed out, I think the Elks are the only other ones in town that actually own property of their own. I know the Kiwanis operates out of the Legion, and the Rotary Club operates out of various other buildings. They don't actually own properties themselves. What other entities are you talking about, Director Linderman?
So currently we have, there's quite a few that there is no application required. They're just automatically exempt under the act. A few that we have granted exemptions to are Olds Gymnastics Club, Habitat for Humanity, groups like that.
Okay, and we don't review those every year, do we?
So under regulation, the exemption can go up for up to 3 years.
Thank you.
Counselor Overwater.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz, to Director Linderman. Most of those exemptions, though, that we do sort of automatically, I guess, for lack of better words, are like churches and stuff like that. They're the ones that don't pay taxes, correct? Or can you clarify who we don't charge municipal taxes to? But they also don't get charged educational taxes either, do they? Or the seniors requisition, do they get that as well?
So schools, churches, hospitals, the town, obviously, no taxes whatsoever. Again, also so the ag societies, they're all exempt. The Legion's exempt, those kinds of things are exempt from all taxes.
They're exempt from education and the seniors requisition.
Yes.
And that's because we have to exempt them, or, okay.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions on the motion that's on the floor? Oh, yeah, well, you did a friendly amendment already. Yes. Yeah. So any further questions, comments? Okay, I will call for the vote then on the motion that's on the floor. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. Then the second motion that we require, council approves cancellation of the property tax on the said roll number 4016200 in the amount of dollars. And Director Linderman, I'm sure you will now speak to that and tell us the exact amount that we will need to approve.
Yes, so I left it blank, so council may choose. So this property, again, they're asking for cancellation of their outstanding property taxes. This property is currently in tax recovery. They have recently paid $3,000 of the outstanding amount. There is a further $4,100 left owing. They have asked for consideration of cancellation of these amounts. Included in the RFT was a breakdown of the amount outstanding, showing what was levy, penalties, and utility transfers. MGA Section 347 allows council, if considered equitable, to do so to cancel all or part of a tax.
Thank you. So then for clarification, then the tax revenue here you've got includes requisitions. So do we have that amount breakdown? Do you have that for us? That's only the tax portion, not the, I would think that the indication already has been that we would do the tax portion only, not the school requisition or the seniors housing requisition.
Right, I did not break that out. I can get someone to send it to me right away.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Yes, I would, this is where I would like to have that breakout that you just mentioned. And then, obviously, I think we can know the waive that the property, the penalty revenue, so the tax penalty. But they should pay their water, their own water and sewer and operation of their own building. And I don't know what the finance is, so whatever that was, they should probably pay for that. I don't have a clue, got a clue. What is that, like for donuts or something? I don't, $30. I haven't got a clue what that is. Do you?
Yes, sorry, that was for the town to register the lien for the tax recovery.
Okay, so we can sort of wipe that one off too. So Councillor Blatz, would you like a motion then for that?
I'm waiting for the amounts.
Okay, so if we could include the amount in Director Lindeman of the municipal taxes, and also the tax penalty and the finance item in the bottom, and then put that number together for that motion.
All right, is there any further conversation though on the utility revenue portion of it? Oh, sorry, Councillor Overwater.
I mean, eventually, I understand, this organization, it is a struggling organization. Most of the people are very elderly. And I think the club probably is almost coming to its demise in this community. Probably eventually, surmising that there's not going to be very many members, and that building is probably going to go up for sale eventually. But I think they just don't have the money. They just don't have money.
Councillor Linderman, or sorry, Director Linderman.
Can I just make a suggestion? Instead of an amount, we could in the motion just say council approves cancellation of the municipal portion of the outstanding taxes on roll number, right?
We could do that.
And then, yeah, if you wish to do all three of those.
Counselor Ryan.
So would you like that in a motion then?
As opposed to the dollar value, yeah, just say the
Okay.
municipal portion.
Of property tax.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I'll make a motion that council approves the cancellation of municipal property taxes, the tax penalty revenue, and the finance miscellaneous finance on roll number 4016200. Period. Oh, we probably should say for 2021, just to be clear.
Yes, for the year 2021.
So it is further back than 2021
Oh.
taxes. So I would just say the outstanding portion.
Yeah.
Outstanding, then is fine, thank you.
Date then. Okay. Okay. Do you want to reread that just to ensure we've got it correct, Counselor Ryan?
Sure, I move that council approves the cancellation of the municipal property taxes, the tax penalty revenue, the outstanding finance on roll number 4016200. Period. And then
Yeah.
we'll just leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Counselor Bennett.
Because they're struggling and I don't think they have a large stream of revenue except from their dues, I'm inclined to just delete all outstanding monies rather than forcing them to have to pay for the education tax and seniors and utilities. I think they're benevolent society and struggling, and I would wish to amend to all outstanding dollars.
Well, I think point of order, we have to vote on the amendment first and then.
Well, you can, yeah. I
Yeah,
just
correct. Legislative clerk. For the first motion, do we have to defeat it?
Not necessarily. Counselor Bennett is just putting another motion on the, or a topic on the floor under this same item.
Okay,
I presume for council to consider before voting on the motion. Because right now your motion is only for a certain percentage.
Right.
Or dollar amount, where she's saying, she's looking at saying all of it. So I think that before you make your vote, you may want to consider her comments.
so then for clarification, Counselor Bennett, you're saying that council approves the cancellation of property taxes for the said roll number in the total amount of $4,100.77. Mr. Merritt.
No, I think, I'm not going to speak for Councillor Bennett, but I think we've already concluded that the tax revenue is only the municipal portion.
Mhm.
So those two, the education, but
I understand what
the
you're saying,
utilities
but I'm
would be
saying
included.
that we would just have this nil and we would cover all the monies owing.
To the $4,100.
Yes, I don't want to nitpick and.
No, okay. That's what I wanted
Nickel
clarification.
and dime, the seniors rec or the ed rec. I don't see that as being beneficial. Ms. McKinnon.
Point of order, it's not an amendment. She would put a motion on the floor requesting what she wants.
No, I'm confused. Are we voting on the first one and then mine?
No, yours first, because if yours passes, then the first motion is no.
Irrelevant.
That's right.
Okay. Mayor, do you have any further comments in regards to this? Okay. All right. So Counselor Bennett has put a motion forth to the council approves cancellation of the property taxes on roll number 4016200 in the amount of $4,100.77. Any further comments or questions in regards to this?
That's the correct amount through Director
Yeah.
Linden. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you so much. If someone be so kind as to get Counselor Harper to return, as she is the chair of this meeting, I would appreciate it.
And just to confirm, because Counselor Ryan, your motion basically is no longer valid, so I presume you're withdrawing your motion now?
Yes, I'll withdraw the motion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Legislative Clerk. Thank you very much. So we can move on to the next item on our agenda. Proclamation, back to school, traffic safety month. And who's presenting?
I believe Sergeant Christensen is going to present on this proclamation. Sergeant Christensen.
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor Harper, Your Worship, and council members. I'm here today to ask for a proclamation for Back to School Traffic Safety Month for the month of September. The objective is to educate children and adults on the safe and travel behavior, no matter how they get to and from school, education to help citizens of all ages learn the safety and shared responsibility among the road users, regardless of mode of transportation they're using. So we have a bunch of newspaper and social media ads that we want to start very soon, as the first day of school is coming up quickly. So we're just asking for this proclamation. We are working in conjunction with the RCMP and Staff Sergeant, I was going to say McDonald. Staff Sergeant Wright, with a plan on the first day of school, with working throughout the community with the RCMP members and myself, doing some education.
Counselor Overwater, do you have a question?
No, I was going to make a motion.
Okay, you're going to make a motion. Great.
Is that all right? Do you want me to do that now?
That's good.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Yes, I move that the month of September be proclaimed as Back to School Traffic Safety Month in the town of Olds. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And we do welcome all the did you knows that are going to be placed within our social media pages, and I'm sure print media and on our website. Thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. So we will move on to pages 80 to 82, sponsorship, Olds Minor Baseball, Youth Dean Boys Baseball Provincials. And who will be presenting for that one?
Your Wagstaff will present this item.
Okay, thank you. Director Wagstaff.
I did just want to start with a quick background to why this one has come so soon before the provincials. The way baseball operates in awarding their provincials, they wait until they find out who qualifies. And then amongst the pool of who qualifies, they choose a location then to then gather for their provincials. Unlike what you've seen before with basketball, volleyball, and hockey within our community, where it's months in advance, this is as the season unfolds. With that said, they have come forward asking for a sponsorship. A couple of things that I would just note with regards to we've recommended $200. The fees for the fields, because our policy is that we do not waive fees. However, the fees that they are spending for the weekend is $250. We did up this recommendation last week based off of a past practice, and then since then have verified the amount of field time that they would be booking for the weekend. So just to that note for you for the background as you have your deliberations on this, we do recommend as administration to support our minor associations, athletic associations that do reach out to host provincials, and as they do attract in a number of out-of-town guests for the weekend.
Thank you very much, Director Wagstaff. Does any questions, Councillor Bennett? Motion and then a question.
Okay, thank you very much. I recommend that council sponsorship of $200 for the Olds Minor Ball 2021 under 15 boys provincial championship tournament, August 27th to 29th, 2021 be approved. I just am curious why you chose that amount, I guess, but I was thinking that because it's provincials, because it's new, and then we'll have our grand opening, that I would consider $500 as a way to help them, and is also a way to show off our new fields and the number of people that are coming to town, which would probably be close to, I'm saying 200 plus. So that's just my suggestion and an opinion.
Dr. Wagstaff.
I understand that the amount of 200 came from what we estimated would be their field
Yeah.
costs at the time,
Yeah.
which is why I provided that background, that
Okay.
since we presented this to get into the agenda package, that we have confirmed the amount of time that they have booked, which is $250 worth of field time. They is a possibility, if council desires to increase the amount that they wish to donate, that they have also looked for a request of someone to sponsor the purchase of some Gatorade or like substance that they would give to each of the players. So we could put a caveat that we'd like to see that put towards that if council desires. We're also asking, as we would typically do, and typically we would see in advance a budget, so we would understand what their expenses are and where their surpluses are going. They're still working on that. They literally are running the bases as they go to put this together. So and a number of their families, we understand that we're also on some vacation time, so they're throwing this together on very short notice themselves, which typically we would have that information to be able to provide to council.
I'm
So-
always happy when something provincially is coming into Olds. So that was my thought.
So Mayor Majiska has a question, and then on to Councillor Ryan.
More of a comment, actually, Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. Actually, there is an attached letter asking for a $450 sponsorship. And as this is one of the first premier events at this premier ballpark that we've invested so much money in, I think it'd be prudent to maybe step up to the plate, as it were, and donate the $450 ask that they have in their letter. And the spin-off is going to be excellent for our town. So I think we'll more than make that up in hotels and restaurants and so forth like that.
Very much, Your Worship. I was also going to note that the request actually was for 450. Councillor Ryan and then Director Wagstaff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I had actually will allow Director Wagstaff to reply to the mayor.
And their initial request was for field fees and some Gatorade supply. So that's where that number that they requested come from. Our recommendation was based off of similar types of requests that we'd had with minor associations where we tried to guide. We're comfortable with whatever council decides.
Back to Councillor Ryan and then Councillor Blatz.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I see here that in the information about the donations policy, requests of up to and including 500 may be approved by the CAO or designate. I would think that at this point, we should have allowed this just to be approved, but I would say rather than limiting the dollar factor to the 200, can we not just say approve up to $450 or $500 so that it would give either our CAO or Director Wagstaff an opportunity to provide them with fees that would cover the rental of the fields as well as the Gatorade. If the Gatorade comes in if the two things come in at $475, then if we say up to $500, then that would also cover Councillor Bennett's comment with regards to providing enough funding for the very first provincial event on our brand new fields.
So Councillor Blatz and then Director Wagstaff.
Well, I was just going to suggest going back to what Councillor Bennett had originally said. I'm comfortable with just a sponsorship of $500 and leave it up there and encourage them if they're looking for Gatorade or whatever they may feel they need to purchase, then to go ahead and do that. I'm good with that.
So Director Wagstaff, do you have a comment?
I do, and you're correct, Councillor Ryan. The CAO would have had the authority if we had just brought it to the CAO. In our haste last week, we just pulled one out of the previous RFDs and put it in. But also with that said, I think it would be good to be able to give them some public kudos for the public out of this, to be able to say it came to council and promote the fact that it's happening this weekend.
CEO Merritt.
Yeah, thank you for that, Director Wagstaff. I did see that it was within my authority, but this is a provincials and it's nice to get recognition of council. And I thought it would be best to bring it to council since we had the time to do it with the timing of the council meeting.
Yeah, I also recognize the fact that it is a provincial tournament and we need to showcase our facility. So I would certainly perhaps make a request of Councillor Overwater. Did you make the motion to start out with? Oh, you did. Perhaps Councillor Bennett might want to just withdraw her motion with the permission of her legislative clerk, because, or you can amend it. It would probably be just as easy to withdraw it. Legislative clerk.
If you're only changing the amount, it's fine. That's just with a friendly amendment. Yeah.
I will do so.
It sounds like,
Yeah, a friendly amendment to change out the $200 donation and make it $500.
Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I understand, even though this really didn't need to come to council, but I do like to know what we are, donating to. And even though it is, 500 or less at different times, I think it's, important that council, has a little running total as to what we're donating to. And I appreciate knowing what the CAO is giving the money out for.
There's a number of rationales for it to be under 500 to go to the CAO, mostly because sometimes council meetings are not together and it's an opportunity to deal with something. But I will always send out a notification to council that I have done this.
So we have an amendment for the motion. So we can vote on the amendment of $500. All in favor of that? Okay, so we have the motion as amended, presented for a vote. All in favor? Oh, Councillor Mayor Majiska, you have a question?
I don't think we need to vote further. I believe we've with the amount to 500. I'd just like to add, go Spitfires, go.
Yeah, first. Okay, moving on then to reports from council, boards and committees. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Do you want the motion first? I move that the reports from council, authorities, boards, committees and commissions ending August 23rd, 2021 be received for information. For myself, it was a kind of a short month, but it seemed like we were constantly busy doing something. We had our Waste Commission meeting, and what we've determined our fees pretty close to already is $26.21, which will be the requisition per capita coming to the town of Olds. We also had a tour of the new cell development, our super cell that we have there, and it was quite impressive as to how big that cell is. And we had the shredder and the compactor give us a demonstration. And with the shredder and the compactor, that will totally increase the landfill life for like 10 for sure more years over and beyond. I also attended several special council meetings, attended the Ag Smart 2 days, very innovative high-tech equipment that's going on out there with remote controls and, people, spraying their fields with drones. And these drones have gotten a whole lot bigger than what they started out as. Attended MPC, we approved a secondary suite, a home occupation. We denied a variance of a driveway from our land bylaw states 10 meters. And this was 24 meters that they wanted to go to, and we denied that. Building permits, July 2021, were 4.28 million. And July last year, 2020, was 3.83. So we are up a bit in building permits for this year thus far. And that's it for right now.
Very much, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. As we're on our summer break, I have only attended special closed council meetings and today's council meeting. So I have a very short report. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Deputy Worship. I did attend the special council meetings, a regular council meeting. I was unable to attend the Municipal Planning Commission meeting this last month, and no other committee or meetings to attend.
Thank you very much, Councillor Glatz.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I also attended all of the meetings of council special meetings and BIC meetings. I did also attend the Smart Ag President's reception for the Olds College, and did go attend the Wednesday morning breakout sessions. And unfortunately, the one breakout session that I would have really liked to have attended, we had a meeting that afternoon, but it was very interested and very interesting and very informative, and very impressive what the Olds College is doing going forward. And I'm glad that I attended. It was a good education piece to attend to. I did have one Red Deer River or South Red Deer River Waste Commission meeting, which was on Friday. And we did get an ISEP grants for both equalized storage ponds in Bowden and in Innisfail. The Bowden pond is completely completed now, and final costs have not come in, but the Bowden or the Innisfail plan, there was a little of discussion over land, which had to go to mediation, which has finally come to fruition, and the ISIP grant will be going forward. They're just putting it out to tender now. They will be building a smaller pond due to land restraints, and hopefully that will be done before the snow flies, but probably not till next spring. And on a somewhat, well, I don't know if it's a positive note, but we are down 13.9% in our budgeted wastewater contribution due to the fact, I think it's been a very dry spring and summer, and overall we're doing very well. The commission has purchased for each individual community and their operators tablets that monitor what's called the SCADA system, which monitors all of our lift stations, and then they can automatically see if there's any issues anywhere along the line, and they can see the whole line. So every operator has that availability. The maintenance part of it is getting caught up, and we are on target. And it's working very well to have municipal operations of each individual town and municipality along the way. So I think that was very positive, and it's good to see that we're able to move forward going forward. And that's the sum and total of my report. I apologize, it's not written.
Thank you very much, Councillor Glatz. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Harper, sorry, got the mayor part in there. Yes, I attended some of the regular or special council meetings like everybody else. The Ag Smart, Councillor Overwater and I actually did a Tuesday afternoon there, and we got to watch some of the demonstrations, including the automated driverless vehicles, equipment that goes out in the fields, which was just astounding how incredible the computer technology has come a long way. So they can go out and run these vehicles with just by typing in the coordinates and on a grid, and even type in any kind of hazards that they come across on the fields too. So it was quite interesting to watch them go through, as well as Councilor Overwater mentioned the drones that are giant size, and they're using them for spraying, which I thought was quite interesting. We also talked to one of the ladies from the Olds College with regards to the smart farm They do a smart farm tour, and we had talked to them about council possibly going and doing a tour this fall, or maybe even the next council might want to do it instead, but it would be a good opportunity for us to go and to learn what the smart farm is. The tourists through the various fields and what they're growing and what they're doing, as well as wetlands and other areas. So it would be a good opportunity for us to do it. I think we should probably pursue that in the future. They certainly are open to doing it. In fact, she quickly provided us with dates and we went, whoa, because we're not sure what the rest of council felt about it, but I thought it would be a good idea to bring up at this point. I also attended a Parkland Regional Library Executive Board meeting. We have developed a sort of I guess, evaluation of where the requisition gets spent, and believe it or not, 91%, we found that 91% of the money that we take in from requisitions from member libraries is actually returned to libraries throughout the whole Parkland regional system. So that's quite interesting, including, e-content and circulation of books and the SuperNet and all these other things that are all included. So that's quite an interesting document that they've produced, and it'll be part of our budget package when it comes forward. Also, they mentioned about how we're going to handle the stat holiday, the new one that the federal government has suggested for September 30th. This is for federal employees, and whether or not they asked us if any municipality has done anything with regards to how we're going to handle it. We have not had a discussion, as far as I know, at council, but perhaps administration has had some kind of discussion as to whether or not that's going to be something that we're going to need to include going forward. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Mr. Merritt, at some point. And also Mountain View Cedars Housing. We've been having a couple of meet and greets with our residents and their families. Over the past week, we went to Dewsbury and Sundre. It's our first opportunity to talk to people face to face since the pandemic. And basically, we just wanted to have them answer any questions or hear any comments or concerns that they might have. And we'll be doing Carstairs and Olds. Carstairs next week, Olds, I'm not sure, probably the week after. And that's all I have. So there you go.
Very much. Mayor Majiska, do you have a report to provide?
Yeah, I absolutely do. In amongst all the other things, the special council meetings and so forth, I was honored to attend the AgSmart president's reception. I got just kudos to the Olds College. What a fantastic event they put on. I think the overall, I guess the reviews, I guess, came in and as it was very, very well done. I got to spend a significant amount of time with Mrs. Marjorie Pistra, who her and her husband have donated a fairly large tract of land to the Olds College in the past couple of years, about 3 years ago, I believe. She was absolutely thrilled to be able to operate one of the drones at one of the demonstrations at the AgSmart. So she was an incredibly interesting lady, and the history around her and her husband and the farm that they set up, and the decision to donate that to the Olds College was an absolutely heartwarming story. So just an absolutely fantastic event. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor.
And I'll just have a brief report. Olds Chamber had a brief meeting in July. Didn't have a chance to report on it. The Chamber has moved from what was their present location because the Boys and Girls Club needed the space. And the Olds Albertan has graciously provided space within the Albertan office for their operations. And a number of volunteers are helping to man the office on a daily basis. Moving forward, there won't be a meeting in August for the Chamber, but there will be a meeting in September to make further decisions. Water Commission had their meeting in July. Chair Rick Blair has resigned his position as chair of the board, as well as the member from Carstairs. And he has accepted the position of Director of Operations for the Water Commission. Mayor Lance Colby is the new member to our commission. And other than that, that's pretty brief. And I attended all the special council meetings over the last month. And I will be attending the ICC meeting this Friday. So. Councillor Overwater.
Yeah, just thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Just to add to Councillor Ryan on that tour for the college, they did indicate it was going to be about 2.5 to 3 hours long, just so that if administration is working on doing something for that in the future, then that's about how long it would take. And we would end up in the brewery, they said.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So we have a vote. We have a motion. We'll have a vote on the motion now. All in favor? Motion is carried. Moving on to our financial updates. Director Linderman.
Thank you. So being presented today is the financial report for the 6-month period, January 1 to June 30th, 2021. At 50% of the way through the year, our operating budget is 39% spent, while the capital budget is 26% spent. There are no huge areas to highlight. One, I guess, on the revenue and expense statement, so Schedule 1, you'll notice under other transactions, it is 2,852% over. This is our COVID line item, so we did not budget for COVID related expenses. So just to point that out, it is going to be over budget, but we do have that money in reserves to cover that. And then I would just open it up to council if there's any questions.
Councillor Blatz, could we entertain a motion to start out with?
I was going to do that. That's
Thank
what I
you.
was going to do. I move that the financial report for the 6-month period and from January 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2021 be accepted for information. And thank you for this information and the clarification on other transactions, because that was going to be my question.
Are there any questions in reference to the financial updates? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. So we now are moving down to correspondence and information. There's a number of items in that correspondence page. CAO Merritt.
Thank you, Deputy. There are 9 pieces of correspondence. The first one is from Municipal Affairs indicating what our gas tax fund amount was going to be. And that's almost double what we were anticipating, but we had known about this for the last number of months. Items B and C are the same. There are two separate ministers, Minister of Infrastructure, Minister of Environment and Parks. And it's in regards to the cancellation of household hazardous waste funding. The indication from the letter from Rocky Mountain House is that there's $2 million that's been downloaded to the province. We are investigating that situation to see if we're impacted, being a member of a commission, maybe not. So we'll provide a further update in regards to if there's an issue and the possibility of us also writing a letter if there is an issue. The next item is from the Claire's home, and they're talking about an item that was discussed earlier today, the Council Code of Conduct, and they're hoping that the province doesn't pursue what they have indicated, possible legislative change. The next 2 items, unfortunately, are E and F, and letters from Municipal Affairs in regards to awards of excellence, one for our annual service level review, and one for our COVID response. So we did not get accepted as a award recipient. So I do appreciate the efforts of staff to put this forward. And on both of those items, we have got kudos and also a lot of requests, and some of councils received requests in regards to how we conduct our service level review. which is why we submitted both of them, is that if people are asking for it, we thought it was a great idea to promote it and hopefully get some recognition. But I'm very proud of the work of all staff that put into those two items. So I've talked to the staff persons that basically had written the responses to say that we were very proud as council and administration for the work that they've done. The next item is from Chair John Sinclair, thanking us for the sponsorship for the old Indigenous Connections and National Indigenous Peoples Day planning and the amount of money that we basically provided. Also, the Olds and District Evergreen Club was very thankful for the money contributed for, I believe, their air conditioning unit. And the next is a letter basically for the Rotary Park of Olds and its grand opening. And that is coming up very soon, September 11th. And hopefully it's going to be a sunny day, unlike today. And I believe Director Wagstaff, you have a comment to make, or someone may want to say a few words about this.
I'm going to completely hand it off to Heather Dixon, Community Facilitator, who is leading the Rotary Club and the town in their, and they're putting on a grand opening for Rotary Athletic Park of Olds. So Heather, please come forward.
Better? Yes? Oh, I don't want to make Mr. Fox angry. So we just really wanted to make sure that you all knew that we are so excited about doing this grand opening of this amazing facility that we have in our community, and make sure each and every one of you got your invite, and let you know that it is going to be happening, like Director Wagstaff said, on September 11th. We've worked in conjunction with the Rotary Club here in Olds to make this happen. At 11 to 11:45, we're going to have the opening ceremony and the ribbon cutting, and Oliver the Owl, I have heard on good authority, will be in attendance as well. So if you want a picture with Oliver, that's your chance. At 12 o'clock, we're going to do some hot dogs and popcorn, because popcorn's good at ball games. So we'll be having popcorn then. Also, we have secured some inflatable games for some of the kids to play while maybe their older siblings are playing the actual games on the diamonds and on the soccer pitches. So if you want to try your hand at some gigantic inflatable horseshoes, some soccer or some baseball games, please make sure you check those out at the park as well. And finally, just to reiterate there that we are having games on the pitches as well as on the different diamonds, different age groups, different groups that utilize, user groups that utilize that park are going to be there. They're all very excited. And we've just asked people to be bring in their own lawn chairs so that they're nice and comfy while we're doing our opening ceremonies. And we've heard back from many of the funders or sponsors that will be attending, as well as our MLA will be there, and Reeve BD has also said he will be joining us. And I understand that most of you will be there as well. So looking forward to that. And if there was any questions, I was just going to be here to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dixon. So could we have a motion to start out with, by the way? Councillor Ryan?
Sure. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. I move that the correspondence and information report ending August 23rd, 2021 be received for information. And I just have one question for Ms. Dixon. And that is, well, first of all, thank you for organizing this. I think it's a long time coming, and I'm sure all of council appreciates all the work, and I hope we get a good attendance coming out. One thing I wanted to ask was, did we send out invites then to all of the people that donated? And I'm just wondering also, yeah, go ahead, answer that question and then let somebody else answer whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, invites have been sent out to all sponsors. The sponsors, there's different levels of what's the word I'm looking for, of involvement for different sponsors. So they're the ones who will be on stage are aware of that. And so, but everybody has been sent something.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
Yeah.
I did have another question.
Sorry, go ahead.
At some point, did we have a talk about a wall? I thought it was with saying, you know, thanking all the sponsors on that. And did we put that together, and is it going to be ready for this?
I will let Director Wagstaff answer that question.
So it's a sign, not necessarily a wall. And there's a couple of concepts that are out there, but one is being fabricated right now in similar design to the Town of Olds and Mountain View County sign that's along 70th Avenue. So it has a similar looking feature. It was going to have two side panels to it. We are still working with the Rotary Club because the main feature in the middle is to acknowledge both the sponsors that sponsored to the Town of Olds directly, as well as those that contributed to the $500,000 of the Rotary Club. So we're still working on what that's going to look like because they also have a space in there to tell their story. So that will not be ready in place for the grand opening on September 11th. The fabricated sign, though, likely will be. So you will see, I think, the frame out there. And the other thing that I just want to share with, when you talk about wall, the Rotary Club has asked about being able to continue some type of giving towards this park for amenities as the park continues to grow and get use. So we've talked about having a wall that would recognize both the donors of the past and those that, so that's the roots of the tree and those branches that will continue to grow into the future, and doing something on the concession wall that would represent that. So that's the concept that they're continuing to work on and would like to have some further commitments to the Rotary Athletic Park of Olds.
Great, good to know. Any other questions? Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. So to Director Wagstaff, would we be thinking of having like little plaques so that should somebody have donated, you know, whether it was $100 or $500, just little plaques that would go up on the concession wall to say Doug Wagstaff 500 or something?
You're thinking you should join Rotary, take out a membership in Rotary and help them fulfill that. That's the type of thing that they're still talking about. So they have a concept, they have an idea, but the actual details to what that would look like is still yet to be determined.
Because it does take a community to build that, not just huge sponsors. I think everybody gives a little bit and things happen.
Great. I do have one question in reference to the correspondence, and that's from the Evergreen Club, the thank you. When did the air conditioner get installed? I hope during the really hot weather.
Early July, you may recall one of the updates just before I know it doesn't feel like we broke for summer, but just before we broke for summer, there was an update that had a line in there to indicate that they were coming in the following week.
Terrific, just in time for all that hot weather. And we'll go from there. So a vote on the motion. Okay. Motion. Yeah, we do have a closed session. So we need to make a motion to go into closed session and indicate who will be staying for the meeting. Councillor Overwater.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Harper. Yes, I move that we go into a closed session for point 16, 25, and 27. And I am assuming all of council, CAO, is that it? Rod Thorkelson.
Director Wagstaff, Director Linderman, Communications Coordinator Leatherdale, and our Legislative Clerk McKinnon will all be part.
Do we have David Lewis here or not? No. Okay. All right. That's my motion.
Thank you very much. All in favor of the motion. Okay. So we're moving. Thank you very much. So we do have just one more motion to go through tonight, and I make a motion, or have somebody make a motion to adjourn. Motion by Councillor Potts to adjourn. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you very much for all of your patience today. Thank you. We'll see you in person, Mr. Mayor, on Thursday.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll sign off.
Thank you, Rod. Have a good night.
Thanks, Rod.
Bye now.
Thanks, Rod.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Marcy.
Rod will be happy to get rid of us too. Shh.